trapped lion fighting for life, a man alone surrounded by the silence of the savannah, and around him a pack of lions slowly approaching. He knew that any false move could be his last. Escape was the safe option, but he chose to stay. He cut the rope. He saved the lion. And it was precisely in that moment that everything changed. What happened next challenged all laws of nature, and no one was prepared to witness it. Stay until the end, because this story will shake everything you believe about instinct, courage, and connection. The sun had barely risen above the horizon when Quito began another solitary patrol across the vast plains of the Serengeti. The air was still fresh, and the tall grass swayed gently in the morning wind. For many, it was just another day in the savannah. But something that morning was different. The silence seemed thicker, as if the earth was holding its breath, waiting for something. Driving slowly along the narrow dirt road, Quito spotted unusual movement in the distance near a twisted tree. He slowed down. Fresh tracks in the mud caught his attention. But these were not animal tracks. They were human, and they were fresh. The forest ranger frowned. Hunters? Adrenaline began to rise and he gripped the steering wheel tightly. Then he saw it, a large body hanging upside down between the tree branches. A lion. Quito pressed the brake and got out quietly. Each step toward the scene seemed to weigh more than the previous one. The lion swayed slightly, trapped in a primitive snare made of ropes and hooks. His muscular body trembled with pain. But what stopped Quito was not just the lion's condition. It was what surrounded him. 2 lionesses were there, a few meters from the tree, motionless, with eyes fixed on him. The tension was suffocating. Quito knew well the dangers of approaching an injured wild animal, especially when others from the group were nearby. One false step could be fatal, but he also knew that if he did nothing, this lion would not survive many hours. The rope had tightened around his belly, restricting breathing, and blood slowly dripped from his golden fur. Despite the danger, something in this scene deeply touched Quito. There was desperation in the lion's eyes, but also something more, a silent appeal. The lionesses, interestingly, did not attack. They only watched, as if somehow they knew that this man posed no threat, as if they were waiting for his decision. Quito breathed deeply. He knew he stood before a choice that would test not only his courage, but also his humanity. He could return to the car, ask for support, and wait. But time was not on his side. Looking into the lion's eyes, he made his decision. He would approach. He would try to save him, even if he was surrounded, even if he was alone. And it was precisely in that moment, in that tense silence between man and beast, that the true story began to be written. Quito knew that every second counted. The hanging lion no longer roared. He breathed with difficulty, his chest rising and falling with effort. Blood dripped from his golden fur, and his eyes, previously intense, were now cloudy. The trap held him tightly around the belly, restricting his movements and affecting circulation. Quito looked at the lionesses. They were there, motionless but alert. They showed no aggression, only observed his every move. It was as if they were waiting for something, perhaps for a decision. And Quito knew that this decision belonged only to him. Fear was real, but urgency weighed more. This lion's life was in danger. Breathing deeply, Quito went to the truck's toolbox and carefully unpacked his equipment. He took climbing rope, rescue scissors, and a first aid kit. He closed the cover carefully. Without sudden movements, he turned toward the tree. He felt the lioness's gaze burning his back. Each step toward the lion increased the tension in the air. But Quito continued. Upon reaching it, he examined the trap. It was primitive, made of ropes and metal hooks, cruelly effective. Baraka, though exhausted, was still conscious. Quito spoke quietly, as if the lion could understand. "I'll get you. Out of there." He tied the rope to his belt and began to climb. The branches creaked slightly, but he moved with precision. Every movement was calculated. A few meters above the ground, he firmly braced against a thick branch, positioned himself beside the trap's main knot, and pulled out the scissors. Time seemed to stop. An ugly cut could worsen the wound, but delaying too long was not an option either. Quito positioned the blade firmly. With one decisive gesture, he cut. Baraka fell with a crash onto the tall grass. Kato quickly jumped and ran toward him. The lionesses took a step forward. He stopped, but so did they. No growling, no threat, only presence. Kneeling beside Baraka, Kato checked his vital signs. The heart beat weakly. Breathing was irregular. The rope mark was deep, but there were no obvious fractures. He cleaned the blood with a cloth and ran to the car for a syringe. He prepared a dose of circulation medication and returned. Calmly, he lifted the lion's head and injected the fluid into his jugular vein. Time seemed suspended. The lionesses watched. Kato waited. The lion's chest moved, slowly but with greater rhythm. It was the first sign. Life still pulsed. He cleaned the wound, made a makeshift bandage, and stepped back a few steps, exhausted. The lionesses were still there, close but calm, as if they knew he was not an enemy. He was their only hope. The silence that followed was more deafening than any roar. Kato stepped back a few paces, but at that moment the two lionesses began to move. Slowly, without haste but decisively, they surrounded the lying lion and simultaneously closed the circle around Kato. The ranger's heart accelerated. Although they showed no hostility, the wild instinct of these animals remained unpredictable. He remained motionless, controlling his breathing, attentive to their every gesture. The lionesses approached until they were a few meters away. One of them looked him straight in the eyes, and then, instead of attacking him, she simply lay down beside Baraka. The other approached a bit more, licked his bloodied cheek, and lay down in silence. Kato could barely believe what he was seeing. Instead of aggression, there was acceptance. He was surrounded, yes, but by trust, not by threat. Kato remained motionless for a few minutes, observing the three lions before him. The tension seemed to disperse, replaced by a strange and unexpected calm. Baraka, now lying on the grass, still breathed heavily, but already showed signs of recovery. The two lionesses remained by his side, quiet, posing no threat. Amara gently licked the wound, while Nyota kept her gaze fixed on Kato, not as a warning, but as a silent vigil. He knew he had been accepted, even if temporarily, in this intimate moment of pain and care. With calm movements, the radio on his belt crackled. He answered and reported that the situation was under control, requesting support in removing traps and veterinary assistance. While he spoke, he observed Baraka trying to move his front paws. Nyota approached and touched him with her snout, encouraging him gently. A few minutes later, Baraka managed to turn his body to the side with effort. Amara lay down beside him, protecting him with her body. Kato stood up. The silence of the savannah was broken only by the wind and the light, crackling of the radio. In that moment, Kato understood that something had changed. It was not just about a routine patrol. He had crossed an invisible line between fear and trust, between man and animal. And in that brief moment, amid the vastness of the Serengeti, something strange emerged: mutual respect. Baraka, with effort, leaned on his paws and let out a low growl, not of threat, but of gratitude. Kato, from a distance, watched him in silence. Nyota followed him with her gaze, while Amara remained beside her companion. The sun was already illuminating the entire savannah when the support team arrived, collecting the traps that had been left behind. Before leaving, Kato looked at the trio one last time. Baraka watched him attentively, as if recognizing the one who had restored him to life. From that day on, every time he patrolled, Kato would stop there, where man and lion are, connected forever. What do you think of this story? Leave your opinion and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.